A very good evening to one and all present. Thank you so much for joining us for the second session of Cosmopolitan with Dr. Sarita Subramaniam. Cosmopolitan in collaboration with Rotary Club of RC Ruia, Earth Brigade Foundation, Rotary Club of Bombay Film City, Rotary Club of Navi Mumbai Hillside, Rotary Club of Birla College, Society for Animal Safety India, and the Yoga Club of GN Khalsa welcomes all the audience present for this event. Let me introduce all of you all to Dr. Sarita Subramaniam. Dr. Sarita Subramaniam, a wildlife enthusiast and a dentist by profession, has traveled far and wide with her husband, Dr. P.V. Subramaniam, across the length and breadth of India to stay connected to nature and have found a novel solution to help save wildlife from dehydration this scorching summer. At a chamber festival 2 years ago, they decided to sell 20 canvas size eye catching wildlife photographs from their collection over the last 20 years to raise money for continuous supply of drinking water for wildlife at Bandipur Tiger Reserve. The wildlife enthusiasts managed to raise an amount of rupees 1 lakh. This money will now be used to buy solar pumps for bore wells to supply water for the animals in the reserve. Their interest in wildlife led to this establishment of their NGO, Earth Brigade Foundation, which works for wildlife related issues. Dr. Sarita, please switch on your camera. Thank you so much for joining Cosmopolitan. We are very honored to have you on board with us.
Thank you so much, Siddhant. Thanks a lot to SnoutClout team. A very, very lovely evening to all the viewers. And I hope that we have a great session today.
Yes. Okay. So to begin with, to begin with our topic, do man-eaters exist? I would really want to know when, how, and why was the term man-eater, coined?
First, the very literal meaning is obviously, anything that eats man, but the connotation is usually given to big cats, carnivores like tigers and leopards. Unfortunately, the very term man-eater instills fear in us humans because it's almost like they are stalking us deliberately and they are doing it intentionally. So I believe, this is my firm belief that there is no such entity as a man-eater. There is none.
Okay.
Now, that sounds controversial, I know, but that's because we've all been fed and given a lot of information from the Jim Corbett books, the Kenneth Anderson books, and it's all told to us about how man-eaters are so dangerous and why we must eliminate them. Now, if you go back to our history, and we have a very rich documented history, there is not a single reference to the term man-eater. We were afraid of tigers as human beings, but we also revered them. Our mythology shows goddesses like Durga. For example, now it's Dashera time. We'll all relate to that. Goddesses atop tigers and Lord Ayyappa sitting on a tiger. Apart from that, we worship the local tribals. We worshipped tigers as Huliana in Karnataka or Wagova in leopards, of course, in RA and other parts of Maharashtra. So there was no term or the very existence of man-eaters. It's almost like it happened only after a certain period of time. Now, this is where I would like to emphasize. It is the British colonists who destroyed our forests to such a large extent that there was the inevitable human-animal-wildlife conflict. Now, how this also happened is they destroyed our forests for their personal gain. So large swathes of forests were destroyed for timber and then later for plantations. So all the tea plantations that you see in Munnar, Darjeeling, and you love the tea gardens, they are all on forested slopes. Don't exist anymore. Now, where did the Britishers get the labor? they were mostly migrant laborers. Now, when the laborers came, these migrant laborers came to the forested areas. Obviously, it was perilous and dangerous, and they didn't want any conflicting situation. So, if there was an animal which was coming into conflict, it was easier to eliminate that animal and immediately declare it a problem tiger, man-eater. Okay. Now, how I would say it is the British who coined the term man-eaters, because there's none in our history books before that.
Correct.
So I do believe it's post-imperialist British rule that we started having man-eaters. So much so, they were hunted to persecution to such a large extent that at the turn of the 20th century, almost, I think there were less than 20,000 tigers. Almost 85,000 tigers were hunted deliberately.
85,000.
Just hunted.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we also need to understand that earlier our forests were sacrosanct, either for religious reasons, or the larger forests were all protected areas of the royalty. So if anybody could go hunting, it was only the king or the nawab. You and I just couldn't say that, "Aaj mujhe shauk hai, let's go and hunt." It didn't happen that way. So the people venturing into the forest actually treaded into the restricted area of the royal hunting grounds. They were shown no mercy. There was no such thing as, "Oh, poor farmer, oh, illegal farmer, illegal grazer," nothing like that. If you were in the hunting grounds of the Raja Maharaja, then you were at fault. It's as simple as that. In fact, most of our tiger reserves now are protected hunting grounds of the erstwhile kings and rulers of our princely states.
Correct.
So I do believe that it is the Britishers who coined the term man-eaters. And then I think Africa, somewhere, I think at the beginning of the 20th century, Africa started seeing trophy hunting of their wildlife. It was but natural that it would come to the Indian shores, and hunting started off even our Indian wildlife. And this time, unlike the earlier Maharajas who used bows and arrows and lance and spears, it was the firearm provided by ammunition that came with the Britishers and the earlier colonists. So then I don't think the tigers really had a chance, despite being so elusive and secretive. Earlier, the kings would round them up with a lot of noise and hunting dogs, and it would be a hunting party. But now, hunting party facilitators were the British Sahibs. So they wanted more and more hunters to come to India. So unfortunately, now here I'm going to get a lot of brickbats, no bouquets, I'm sure. I feel Jim Corbett, though he turned remorseful later in the later years, is largely responsible for creating the myth and perpetuating the myth right now to 2021, where we believe that because Jim Corbett said that if a tiger was injured or had a fractured canine or was ailing, became a man-eater. So if you read his books, most of us have read his books, you will find that the Champavat tigress whom he hunted, and he became famous as a trophy hunter after he killed the Champavat tigress. She was supposed to have killed 436 humans. Okay? And he shot her dead. And that's how he became famous. Now, nobody at that time even asked, is it the same tigress who's killing all 436 people, or it was just assumed it is this one particular tigress? The same with the man-eater leopard of Rudraprayag. It is supposed to have killed many humans, I think 170, I'm not sure of the exact number, over 1.5-2 years, and walking long distances. This is something which they say about man-eaters, that they travel long distance in search of humans. Again, a myth perpetuated by Anderson and Corbett from their books. Unfortunately, they didn't have the modern technique of identifying tigers or leopards. Now, tigers can be easily identified by their unique stripe pattern. Similarly,
Okay.
leopards can be identified by their unique rosette pattern. And
Okay.
none of the hunters back then who wrote these narratives had the access to this modern technique of identifying tigers. So very easily they could have shot any tiger which came to, let's say, a kill, and said this is the tigress which was killing, let's say, 100 miles away, 200 miles away, which killed a year ago.
Correct.
And it could be very well that there were multiple tigers or multiple leopards who were doing the killing, but all attributed for this narrative, which sounds so romantic and so exciting, not just to the reader, but even to instill fear in the people. So
Yes.
I feel that though he did turn remorseful in the latter years, much damage has been done by Jim Corbett's books. And even now, well-meaning wildlife conservationists believe that, including the forest department, believe that if there is a fractured canine, that can make, or there is an injury, it can make the tiger or the leopard attack human beings more. Now, here I would like to contradict again the forest department and the so-called wildlife lovers who believe that tasting blood or flesh of a human being makes a tiger or a leopard seek out humans. Now, we have to understand that these are wild animals. They are carnivores.
Yeah.
They don't have the luxury of choosing their meat or carcass. One thing we need to remember about tigers, they are majestic, supreme hunters, but
Absolutely.
they are lazy, they are smart, and they are shrewd enough to scavenge or eat another animal's prey. They don't mind eating a carcass. So if it is a human being lying in the forest, they don't mind devouring it. If it has attacked, let's say, a human being, even as a chance encounter or a mistaken identity, it won't mind eating it. It is just another piece of flesh for it. It may or may not eat it. It doesn't mean that just because it has tasted blood once, it will go after. There's another thing. Now, most of these killings, human killings, are usually what is termed as chance encounters or mistaken identity, where the tiger or the leopard mistakes the human being for its natural prey and kills it. Why does this happen? If you notice, most of the human killings will be of most of it will be of elderly people, elderly men, or women and children. The reason, there is a reason for this, and this I believe, again, this is my belief, is that it's because elderly men tend to squat even for urination, whereas women and young kids usually, so they become smaller, and the tiger or the leopard thinks it's its natural prey and attacks it. Okay. Another thing you will notice is most of these killings, human killings, most of these human killings also take place when there is usually cattle or livestock. Cattle or livestock, I mean goats or, like that. Now, when you see, you're tempting the tiger or the leopard, you're tempting it with easy cattle or easy livestock. It will obviously go for the cattle and it will consider the human a threat. Now, there is one more thing that you need to understand. Every living being has what is called a confiding space and a fleeing space. Okay? A confiding space is how much I will allow another being to come close to me, how much I will allow that person to come, person, living being, anything. And I'm safe. I trust that thing and I allow it to come. The other is the fleeing mode. When that confiding distance is breached, it's an instinctive call where I will either decide to flee or My instinct might tell me to fight. You ask any woman, and she knows why she will be able to instinctively trust another person or not trust another person. It's a gut feel. I don't know. I've said a woman because I'm a woman. I'm sure you men also there have. I'm sorry, I'm not being, gender specific here in that sense.
Yeah.
It is the same with. Now, it's the same with every tiger. Any tiger or leopard, if it decides to attack, it's a judgment call. It's a judgment call. Do I feel threatened by this human being? Or do I ignore it and go away? And having made that instinctive judgment call, once it kills the human being, it's not necessary it eats it. Now, even if it eats it, it doesn't mean that it is going to attack another human being.
Right.
Just imagine if there is a cow standing next to the human being, the tiger will go after the cow simply because the cow is closer to its natural prey, the herbivores, which are sambar steers, its natural prey. Plus, it's more fleshy. It's more fleshy than a human being. And what they want, and what they want is flesh. They are not seeking human beings. So that's a complete myth which I want people to pause, think. Just see, did Jim Corbett have access to the information of stripe identification or stripe marking identification or rosette pattern identification to say that all these human kills were attributed to that particular tiger or that particular leopard? It's tragic that even today, recently, a leopard was mistakenly caught, the rosette pattern not properly identified by the forest department and their experts. And they had egg on their face when another leopard came and got caught in the cage. So now the first leopard is caught.
Yeah.
It is supposedly, yes, this happened in RA after the old lady was attacked. They had no way of identifying. So now they probably have 2 saddled leopards in their captivity. With God knows if there's any hope of releasing them. So if today we don't, with the luxury of stripe identification, a stripe pattern identification, we don't do proper due diligence.
Correct.
We can't blame the hunters of yore because they didn't have access.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, They didn't have the technology or neither did they know how to do it. So, yeah. But that, I think, killed a lot of tigers
and also,
just because they didn't have it.
Yeah, and also you have to understand, when there are whether it is a rich plantation owner or you often hear that, this tiger killed a poor farmer who was working in his field. First ask, was the field inside the forest? Did the tiger step out of his forest to come and attack this human being? Or was it the human being who was illegally in the field inside the forest? When you hear of grazers, a poor grazer was killed. He had no business taking his cattle
Recording
into the forest.
in progress.
Into the forest and, going along. So if you go into, let's say, the army's firing range and you get hurt, can you blame the army? Who's responsible here? It's the human being.
Correct.
Right? Similarly, if you see, if I were to walk on the railway tracks and I get injured or killed, my family or I will not get any compensation from the Indian Railways. The reason being, it is presumed this is restricted, designated area for the locomotive. And as a human being, you are supposed to know that you're not supposed to walk on the tracks.
Correct.
It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, when it comes to human beings, we feel that the locals, they are poor, they have no choice, they have to go into the forest and thereby they get killed. So we have to give compensation. Now,
Yeah.
The Indian Railways does not give any compensation. The government gives, as of now, 25,000 for a hit and run case. Recently,
Okay.
you know that there was some people who were killed in Lakhimpur by some powerful people, let's say. And the government decided to increase the ex gratia payment to 2 lakhs. But until now, it's just 25,000. Okay. Now, why am I bringing this here into the man-eater conversation? The reason is most state governments give around 4 to 5 lakhs as compensation for wildlife attack victims, including tiger attacks, okay, to the families. As of now, Maharashtra gives 10 lakhs. They are planning to increase it to 15 lakhs. No other form of compensation by the government for any tragic event, whether it is a natural, let's say a flood or a cyclone or an earthquake, or a man-made one like an automobile one or aircraft. Okay, if there is an air crash, I think as per the Montreal contract, you're supposed to get only 10 lakhs. And yet here, for a wildlife victim, taxpayers' money, almost 15 lakhs is going to be given to the wildlife victim families. I would say, great, but at least do your due diligence. If you're going to use 15 lakhs of taxpayers' money, at least ensure that, yes, it was indeed a wildlife attack. You know, don't just assume that it was a wildlife attack. It was, how do you know that the body was not dumped in the forest? There are newspaper reports which say that the body was, elderly were left in the forest to be killed for the sake of compensation. Here, I think the police and the forest department, along with locals, are in collusion. Because there's a lot of money. These people don't see that kind of money. So there's a lot of layers associated with just declaring an animal a man-eater. The other thing is, if you notice the recent one about the Gudalur tiger, okay, which is in Tamil Nadu recently. Gudalur is full of plantations, tea, coffee, and spices plantations. Most of the plantations, the land status, that is the ownership status, has still not been reconciled between the revenue department and the forest department. What I mean by that is that if I'm a plantation owner, most of my land still probably doesn't belong to me. It was probably belonging to the forest. Or maybe, I have encroached into the forest land, and my migrant laborers, again, are working in encroached tiger forests. So if I don't want my migrant laborer to get killed, or I don't want my migrant laborers to go away en masse, I will want the tiger to be declared a nuisance, problem, or a man-eater. And even if it kills cattle, it is declared a man-eater, because it's a threat to, let's say, humans and human property. Here, I would like to mention our Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, we have a very, very powerful Wildlife Protection Act, which was promulgated in 1972. Unfortunately, the legacy of our colonial past doesn't leave us. It continues. Okay, so in the British time, it was the chief wildlife warden who would issue hunting permits. Only he could issue hunting permits. Okay. It continues till date, though hunting is legally unlawful. The chief wildlife warden of the state is the only person in the country, let's say of Maharashtra, is the chief wildlife warden of Maharashtra, is the only person who can give an order to capture, which is equivalent to hunting, or elimination or killing or whatever it is of the tiger.
Yeah.
Only the chief wildlife warden. And this is the tragic part. He is not accountable or responsible for taking this decision. So while we can actually try and challenge that decision, which I have done through my NGO several times for Avni, the tigress from Pandarkhawda. We had 3 PILs, 2 PILs in the Nagpur bench of the Honorable Bombay High Court, and we also went to the Supreme Court, but we lost each time. And eventually, she was, after the 3rd PIL, within 10 days, she was hunted down by a hunter called by the Maharashtra state government, forest department. The law actually is so much against the tiger. It doesn't have representation other than people who stand up and speak. But the law is such that our courts can't do anything. They can't go against the law. Did the CWLW give the order? Yes. Is he? Yes. Does he need to justify it? No. So what do we challenge? It is so biased, and unless and until we demand an amendment where it's not one individual, but a body, a panel, which decides whether a tiger needs to be captured humanely, I think we will continue to declare animals as man-eaters.
So it's basically like we don't look into the damage we are doing. So if we get into a forest, if we are, stepping into their territory, and if we get attacked, we blame the tiger, and in the end, the tiger gets killed because of our wrongdoings.
More often than not, see, the NTCA is the apex body for tiger conservation in India. Okay. So they have set a body of guidelines, and at the outset they have said that these guidelines have to be applied only when the tiger strays into human dominated settlements. Okay, again, it's very vague. It doesn't say where the human settlement is. Okay, is it in the forest? Is it in the restricted area? Or is it just any human settlement? So even then, most of the time, when the CWLW issues the order, he does not take into consideration this basic fact. Was the tiger out of its territory? Or did the human being enter into the forest illegally? Now, if we have in India a tobacco promotion board, probably the only one in the country, where we also ensure that tendu leaves are used to make BDs. So we assume that we are providing employment for the locals. What is that employment? To actually make BDs. Okay, so these locals tend to give it as a contract to others, migrant laborers again. They go into the forest, collect the tendu leaves, and make themselves vulnerable to the tiger attack. Likewise, the grazers. Likewise, when you go and cut firewood or collect any of the honey. Okay, in Sundarbans, a lot of tiger attacks take place because the locals go to collect honey. The forest honey is supposed to be special, and so they endanger themselves. Now, here again, if for our greed and need, we are actually going to blame the tiger, how will an animal ever? It's a speechless animal. More importantly, it's a voteless animal. How is it going to give its representation of its innocence? It is always going to be circumstantial evidence. So I would say we need a panel of wildlife biologists, forensic pathologists, medical pathologists, veterinarians. Okay, our veterinarians are not even trained in wildlife veterinary science. They have no knowledge. They have no. Yes, we don't have a single wildlife veterinarian in India. All of them are They are not trained. How will you get them? They don't have a subject. They don't know anything. They don't know anything about the anatomy or physiology of the tiger or the leopard. So the forest department does not have a single permanent wildlife veterinarian. They have a few on deputation from the animal husbandry department, if at all. Otherwise, on ad hoc basis, they ask a veterinarian to come. How do you think we can rescue and capture and rehabilitate animals? We don't have the wherewithals, we don't have the skill, we don't have the training, we don't have the armament, we don't have the drugs needed to tranquilize wildlife. So all of this makes it easy for so many times to capture. But if you don't know how to capture, if you don't know how to rehabilitate them, what do you do then? You will end up actually looking at it as a headache, eliminated, baat khatam, let's move on. So, and our greed. Unfortunately, our human greed is insatiable. We are told, we as in you and I, the average citizen of the country, is constantly told by tiger conservationists that we have to pamper, mollycoddle the local stakeholders. Only then will wildlife survive. Only then can we do conservation of wildlife. If that were so, why will we have so much conflict? If that were section forest department, but they are not capable, their hands are tied. So it's a quite a dismal situation as far as wildlife is concerned.
And I would really want to know, like, in what situations does a tiger change a natural diet, to become a man-eater?
Like I told you earlier, a tiger is a wild animal. Okay. Okay. Let me put it in context to, let's say, the urban population who's probably listening. They understand this better. The stray dog out on the streets. Okay. He or she is not surviving on the Parle G biscuit you give. It is eating garbage. Okay. When the animal eats garbage, it is not discerning. It's not a buffet. Acha, today I will have mutton, today I will have human flesh. No, they eat what they get in the most effective and efficient manner, and they will survive on it. It is purely to survive that moment, that time. They don't have a 5-year pension plan. They eat whatever they get. So there is no such thing as a change in diet. What happens, of course, is that when a tiger can't hunt, if it's injured or ailing, then it will actually hunt easier prey. Okay. Now, Siddhant, please tell me, if there is a cow which is tethered next to a human settlement, if there is if there are goats in a corral, the leopard will go for the corral and the goats inside the corral. It's not going to go after the human being. If it goes after a sleeping child, it is because it just looks at it as another prey. So there is no scientific, there is not a single piece of scientific or biological study published or even done ever on man-eaters. And yet the myth of man-eaters perpetuates. Not a single study. Not a single scientific study to tell us XYZ denotes a man-eater. It is just word of mouth and, basically our own inherent fears.
I see. Okay. And how the term man-eater has been, how has the term man-eater actually been responsible for the failure of tiger conservation overall?
I feel it has played a huge role. Yeah, it has played a huge role in the failure of tiger conservation, simply because when we have a very robust population in let's say 10 or 15 out of the 53 tiger reserves we have. 53rd is now going to be declared. So let's say 50 plus tiger reserves we have. Out of the 50, only 10 are really thriving with tiger population. When we talk about surplus tigers, or we talk about, tigers are territorial animals. They need space. Okay, so we say, oh, there's so much inside the tiger reserves, so they're spilling out. So they're called spillovers. Now, we fail to admit there are two reasons for the spillovers. It is not the narrative given by the authorities. There is more to it. When inside the core, there is poor management. When I say poor management, the grasslands are not developed. If the water is not there, how will the herbivores survive? If the natural prey of the tiger, the herbivores, don't have food and water, that food and water is also eaten away by our cattle and livestock. Right. So what will the tiger's natural prey do? So then we hunt all the natural prey of the tiger for ourselves, for human consumption. We do eat game meat, whether it is legal or not. We do eat in large numbers. So there's nothing left for the tigers. So what the narrative says is that our tiger parks are bursting with tiger numbers. So the younger ones in search of new territories go out and thereby come into human conflict. Now, we are not saying this. Our human population is increasing so much. We are actually choking all their migratory corridors. Where will they go? And if you do this, if you continue to encroach on their migratory corridors in the name of mining, in the name of infrastructure development, in the name of making dams, river linking projects, we are going to lose the genetic pool of the tigers. Without firing a single bullet, we will lose tigers to mutation. And I think now we should know this, that what mutation does, right? We all are aware of the coronavirus and the mutants that are still continuing to wreak havoc in our lives.
I know. Yeah.
So it is, I don't think, and also as long as this myth of man-eater is allowed to perpetuate, we will never try and save each and every tiger. The tiger is actually, honestly, critically endangered. We are fudging numbers. We are pretending that there are lots of it because we see these few tigers in, the 10 odd popular parks all the time being seen on photographs and images on social media. And we feel there are tigers all over the place. That is far from the truth.
I mean, no one ever speaks about, all that you've told me right now. It's just hidden to us. And, it just shows how we as humans are like literally destroying them at a very alarming rate,
Yes, true. See, actually what is happening is that in the name of development and progress, we are destroying so many forests which are natural. See, the tiger is an umbrella species. So it is like, if I protect the tiger, I ensure that all other species under it, all other species that are living in that ecosystem, which in a sustainable way, we are completely disrupting it. For example, when Avni was removed from her forest, we knew that her two cubs will also be endangered. Yet the forest department and the state said that it's collateral damage. Plus, again, the myth that if the cubs have tasted human flesh, they become adults and they will become man-eaters. Tell me one documented scientific theory to confirm this or collaborate this. None. It is just a myth, but it is so deeply ingrained in each of our psyche that we accept and believe anything that is told to us. So like I always tell you, Siddhant, pause, take a step back, Start thinking for yourself, and the answers will come to you. You will not need Dr. Sarita Subramaniam to give you the answers.
Yeah. I mean, yes, if you actually, sit and think about all that you've told me, and yes, this is actually happening. And I think all of us, we are very busy with our lives. We really don't, look into these small things we do, which is indirectly affecting, these wild animals out there. You know. Am I audible, doctor? Okay, am I
See, I'll
audible?
tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you're audible. It was.
Yeah.
I think even my internet connection is a bit unstable. I keep getting reminders.
Okay, okay, okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Am I?
Yes, yes.
See, let me tell you what the pandemic has done. Okay, the
Yeah,
pandemic, if anything, has told us how important oxygen is. Something we take for
yeah,
granted, right? It is the trees which are giving the oxygen to us, free, easily available, on without even demanding. It's just there. We are not appreciating what the forests are giving us. Our ancestors had the wisdom to have one rise, to protected sacred forests. It was sacrosanct to not disrupt forests. Okay, I will give you an example. In Uttarakhand, near Tungnath, Chopta, there is a small village where we often go for bird watching.
okay,
And the villager there, the guide who takes us for our bird watching trips, after the Kedarnath floods, had to chop a tree from
okay,
their village sacred forest, okay, to make his new home. So after that, he had to go and offer penance, as an offering to Lord Tungnath, and say that I made a mistake and whatever, he had to repent and all that. That is how a local, when you talk about locals, this is the ethos which was present in our ancestors. Right now, if you just say that all locals are stakeholders, no, they don't have the sensibilities of their ancestors. They are as greedy as you or I who's living in the cities. If anything, I think we need to understand there is something called urban poor and rural poor.
yeah,
Somebody told me it is actually resource poor or resource rich. I don't think that is the case so much now. Okay, if after 70 plus years of independence, we are still asking people to depend on forests for their livelihood, then I think we have failed, right? We have
yeah,
failed as a state, we have failed as a nation. Why do people still need to collect firewood? If we are providing them with a gas cylinder, they still don't use it, they still go into the forest. If, let's say, we as in the taxpayer pays for their toilets so that they don't go for open defecation in the forest, and they continue to go, and then blame the tiger, it's the entire tiger or its family which is actually affected, no?
yeah,
So I think each of us, if we are in Bombay, we need to understand the plight of the leopards in Bombay, in RA. If we want certain, we want to go from one destination to another destination quickly, let's pause and see what it is doing to the wildlife of RA. Do we really need to travel that fast, that soon? Maybe we can slow down a bit. So I feel each of us, so if you ask me what you or I can do, is probably first thing, if you can vote, okay, vote and ask and demand that wildlife be given a representation. Ask
yes,
for the constitution to be amended. Ask for the wildlife laws to be strict. We have very good laws, like I told you. Ask for the laws to be strictly, swiftly implemented. Empower and build, strengthen our forest department. Don't make them just toys to be bandied about by political parties and local stakeholders. We have a very good forest department, but unfortunately its focus is more about exploiting the forest than actually protecting it now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so if we have the forest department, we need to ensure that the primary task or primary duty of every forest official should be protection of the forest, protection of the habitat, protection of wildlife. Unfortunately here we are so scared of, in the forest department, we actually tie their hands. We tell them, we are going to give you outdated rifles. You go fight poachers who come with state-of-the-art AK-47 and work in collaboration with the locals. And then we tell not to do anything to the locals because they are the vote banks. How do you strengthen the forest department? It's very easy at times to blame the forest department. But one thing I can tell you, if we have some forests left, if we have some wildlife left in the country, it is only because of dedicated, sincere forest officials, not because of the locals. So while you can continue to pamper the locals, sorry, I would say it is only there for the forest officials' dedication which has protected the animals.
And there's another thing. Why do we need to have a paradigm shift in our thinking about man-eaters? What can we do?
See, if you are going, see, with our increased.
Doctor, I can't hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes, very much. Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
You are audible. Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, thanks. See, unless and until, first we completely obliterate from our lexicon the word man-eater, we are not going to be able to protect the tiger. Now, why do I say this? With our increased human population, our insatiable greed, we have
Ayushman, what just happened? Okay, we'll just wait for her. So, guys, if y'all have questions, y'all can please put it up in the chat box. You can even go to all the live stream platforms and put it in the chat box over there. Let's keep this session very interactive. If you have any doubts, any questions, you can interact. You can let me know so I can ask Dr. Sarita about it. Thank you so much. We'll just wait for her to join. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience.
now. I think I lost the for some.
Not a problem.
So sorry. I think I lost.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. See, why do I say that? Unless we completely eliminate the term man-eater from our vocabulary, we are not going to be able to save the tiger. It's as simple as that. And why do I say that? Why do I say that? Our human population is increasing alarmingly and without any control. We are going to go further and further into the tiger's domain. We will find that tiger a threat to our interests. Eventually, we will ensure that that species goes extinct. So will the forest, and so will 1,000 other species. So if I were to tell you that the Malabar bush frog or the gharial is endangered, do something about it, you don't care. You need a charismatic species like the Royal Bengal tiger to attract people to its plight and to work towards its conservation. And please, it is not the duty of just a few wildlife lovers or tiger conservationists to protect the tiger. You, I, everybody and anybody can actually raise our voice. So the next time there is a protest, go beyond the online protest. Try and take part in the street protest. Most of the protests done by wildlife lovers are peaceful, silent ones. Just be a part of it. Take time out. Don't expect somebody else to file a PIL. It is the right and privilege of every citizen to file PIL if necessary. Support the people who are doing that. There are very few people who pick up the gauntlet and file PIL in our country for wildlife. It's well, and hats off to the people who have got amazing verdicts for in favor of wildlife and environment. It's truly creditable. So, support them in whatever way you can. Everything doesn't have to be monetary. Just your mere physical presence. Or I mean, if you ask me, I do not think that.
Wait, ma'am, can you please come again? I couldn't hear you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes. Now you're audible.
No, that's okay. A bit. Not every professional, or I could have said that I'm a busy professional and I'm not going to fight a PIL. But when I did, okay, or anything that I have done for anything that I have done for Mother Nature is just a bit of my tuition fees to Mother Nature. She has taught me everything that I know, what little I know, she has taught me. And this is how I would like to repay her. So when I fight for a tiger, or when I fight for RA's wildlife with PILs, I'm doing my little bit. I'm sure each one of us can do something. And I think it's time we shed off our apathy and our inertia and do something about it.
Yes, I think we should. All of us as teenagers, we have a lot of power if we are together. And yes, we can support the cause if we are in this together. Ma'am, am I audible?
I think I lost you for some time, Siddhant.
Okay, I was saying that
Am I audible?
Yes. I was saying that we as teenagers, all of us have to come together. I think we'll be we'll be a huge army. If all of us are together in this, we support. It should. I really feel that if we all come together, we protest. We raise our voices against these unjust practices. We can win. That's what I really feel. And I'm glad that because of
Siddhant,
this speech, yes.
Actually, No, please go ahead. Sorry, I thought you finished because the internet
Actually, your speech is not clear. It's cracking.
Um,
Ayushman, is it my connection?
audible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it is audible.
Audible? Okay, fine. Okay, thanks. So, see, I believe the adults before you are not going to have not.
Ayushman, I'm not able to hear, ma'am. Is it my connection? Okay. You want me to shut my camera so that doesn't disrupt the live?
Audible. I'm really sorry about the
Okay.
network. I'm in the boondocks of Karjat, and this is the best I get.
We are completely understand. Not a problem.
So sorry. Yeah. So yeah. So unless you teenagers do something about it, I think it's going to be too late. If you're a teenager who can vote, please go and vote for the party who will actually protect the environment, protect wildlife, and protect forests. Because otherwise, you and your next generation is not going to be able to breathe. There'll be
That
nothing
is there.
left.
Yes.
If your child, your children, or your grandchildren will ever see the tiger in the wild.
That's true. That's true. I completely agree with you.
So, if,
Doctor, yeah.
for example, if yeah.
No, please carry on. Please carry on.
So if as a teenager you let's say you're not somebody who's eligible to vote, okay, but you still have a voice, right? So start campaigns in your within your community. Start campaigns within, start with your family. Start telling your parents, how to actually think about wildlife. They didn't want not to buy the firecrackers for them. So if as a teenager or as a child, you tell your parent, I do not want to go to the zoo. I don't want to see the tiger in captivity. I want to see the tiger, if at all, in the wild. Do something to protect the tiger in the wild. I can't do something, but you can,
Yes, absolutely. We all should stop going to the zoos, be it aquariums, be it sea worlds, wherein sea animals, a lot of animals are captured over there for our entertainment purposes, and they are just shown that these are for educational purposes, but they are not. They have gone through a lot. They face mental trauma.
yeah,
Uh, it's high
yeah.
time we stop doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What better example? See, when you say this is a man eater, okay, for example, a tiger is a man eater, we have caught it, or it's a problem tiger, and you've caught it, and then you keep it in captivity. Okay. Or during the we're in captivity, literally. But we knew that eventually the lockdown is going to be lifted, and it was lifted. But don't we know how miserable we were? Is what that animal putting it is a glorified big cage, or in a glorified big area which resembles the natural state it is in. It is still in captivity. It is not living its natural life. And if you want to be entertained, you have to find other means. We have over 100 TV channels. Go see them. We know more about dinosaurs than we know about the tiger. How? Because we educated ourselves.
We've never seen that. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've never seen a tiger, a dinosaur, and yet. But if it is a tiger or a giraffe, why, or a penguin, why do you want to go to the zoo? If you can and you can afford to, go see it in the wild if and when the opportunity arises. I would say I saw the Taj Mahal after I was 42. Okay. And the Taj Mahal was not brought to me near my house just because I wanted to educate myself and see it. So why do we need to get tigers or leopards or penguins or giraffes to a zoo in Baikla? We don't need it, right?
Yes. Yes.
If and when I can afford
That's
to go
right.
to Africa, I'll go. I'll see them in the wild. Or I'll go to Antarctica, which I want to.
Doctor, I have a very interesting question for you. I think you'll
Sure.
really like answering this.
Sure.
As we are short of time, this will be the last question to you. I wouldn't be taking much of your time. Uh, can you okay? What are your views on the case about the tigress Avni who was shot in November 2018 after 2 years
It's okay.
killing spree?
Sorry, I didn't hear you clearly.
Yeah.
What are my views?
What are your views on the case about the tigress Avni who was shot in November 2018 after 2 year killing spree?
See, actually, the matter is sub judice in the sense it is. I'm the director of the NGO which has filed a PIL right now. Also, this is our fourth PIL in the Avni matter. Can't say, but what I can say, I'll tell you. About Avni, specifically about Avni, I have never seen Avni. In fact, I think very few people have actually seen her alive.
Okay.
But a lot of circumstantial evidence was used to implicate her. Like there were in they said there were 9 or 10 my law complained to the court, and the court actually stopped the first should stop.
Ma'am, your speech
But
isn't clear.
and the hunters. Am I clear now?
Yes. Now it
Is
is
it
clear.
better? Okay.
Yes, I'm
So
so
we
sorry.
went to the court, and when we went to the court, we showed the court that there were a lot of anomalies and lot of irregularities in the way they have even found that half-eaten, decomposed bodies, for example, in the forest, deep inside the forest, were shown to be as Avni's.
But there was no solid proof that it was her.
No proof, it was not confirmed. Most tigers, they just use, let's say if they find pug marks next to a body, okay, they will say that it is the tiger which killed, okay, without seeing that when how pug mark did tiger to the body afterwards. Now, this is all the job of forensic pathologists. Everything is fudged up, everything is. So it is like a murder mystery or whatever, without, you have already implicated a murderer without even him or her being anywhere close to the victim. The first fellow who was on the road, you've caught him and you made him the murderer. And unlike the human murderer, the tiger doesn't have any say in the matter. And with Avni, she had
she had 2 cubs.
With Avni, yes, she had 2 cubs, and yet the knew that if they killed her, the cubs would die. So eventually, they managed to capture the female cub. The male cub allegedly escaped and is never to be found. There's no trace of him. Young cubs don't survive on their own without their mother. The female cub was kept in captivity for close to a year and a half. They tried to release her prematurely, and she also was done by another tigress, and she too succumbed.
Ma'am, I can't hear you.
And people knew, and they felt that it is okay. It is okay to.
So this is a sad reality of how inhuman our I think wildlife officers, the government, all of them have taken a decision in haste.
No, it
And
is
today,
not just the officials. It is also the locals who see you. You will say a poor farmer without realizing that most of the farmers in Avni's area are rich cotton or farm owners. Most of them take their cattle into the forest. So wherever you go around Avni's area, it is full of milk and milk product shops. Obviously, the milk is coming from the cattle which are taken illegally on a contract basis into the forest. So you don't realize how by allowing grazing, you will think, oh, poor herd, poor shepherd. It's not of the villagers who collect all to eat the fresh fodder of the forest, which is meant for the tiger's prey. So what are we doing? We are only going to encroach further and further into the forest.
correct. So, and this is how we have lost Avni today. And I mean, it's just very
It's not
sad.
only Avni. No, it's not only Avni. See, the sad part is, create such a large awareness campaign. We would not have.
Doctor, your speech isn't clear because of
Being private hunters can take tigers today by the forest department protection.
Doctor. I'm not able to hear you. We're already running short of time.
Yeah. So to wind up, I think you teenagers have a huge role to play in influencing the society, the community, the country at large, and ensure that wildlife, tigers, our forests, rivers, everything is protected.
Doctor, thank you so much for addressing us, empowering us to stand up for Mother Nature and wildlife. This session is going to create a huge impact on all of us. This one hour. I'm sure we all of us will be standing up for them when we get the opportunity. We'll take the matter into our own hands, and yes, we will stand up now on. Now that it's an eye opener for all of us.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, SnoutClout. Thanks a lot, Siddhant.
Most welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving us your time. It was a great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, members. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next session will be updated on our website, on our Instagram feed. You can check out Dr. Sarita ma'am's work on. I will be mentioning the link in our bio. You can check her work out. Please do support her and stand up for all the wildlife animals around you. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening ahead. Doctor, can we please have a picture with you? Yes.
Okay, I'm going inside. Just a minute. I'll just hang on. I can't get up now. I'll have to. I'll need help to get up.